All right. There was a check by the sheriff's department. One armed man was behind the threats, 44-year-old William Jacob Parsons. Statement from the county sheriff confirmed Parsons had a handgun and rifle and acted alone. Parsons was armed with a handgun and rifle, acted alone, and there were no truckloads of militia. The Washington Post updated their reporting. The headline changed to North Carolina authorities arrest armed man after threats from FEMA workers. With us now, Washington Post extreme weather and disasters reporter Brianna Sacks. Brianna, nice to see you. Help us just in the evolving of this story. Where did we get the armed militias in two trucks?
Yeah, so that came in some warning to FEMA and then to the U.S. Forest Service, who sent an email to interagencies responding to Helene that they had received a threat or heard of a threat of 2X pickup trucks with armed militia driving around saying they were looking for FEMA employees. And it was an urgent message, and they then asked those workers in that area to be moved to a safer area.
So have we still gotten to how we went from one armed guy to 2X pickup trucks?
That is something that we, and I think the authorities are also looking into. I mean, you have to remember the climate here in terms of this part of North Carolina, what they've been through. There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of fear.
You're down there right now?
I actually just got back. I was there,
okay.
A few days. So I just got back from my time there. I was in Rutherford County.
Yeah, well, tell us about it. I mean, I'm sure you found a lot of people who were really angry.
Yes, I wouldn't say a lot. It's been, this is a massive disaster. It has covered, miles and miles of this region, and Asheville has a different tone, right, than, let's say, Lake Lure or Chimney Rock in terms of like what people are feeling. Each community is dealing with its own specific kind of disaster. So I will say that
fair to say, right? Asheville, quite blue, surrounded by a lot of red. If we just look at the map in terms of how the counties are.
Yes.
Is there something though, and I hear you. I've watched so much of the coverage about misinformation and disinformation and the dangers of misinformation during the hurricane, on and on and on. Is there an irony that all of a sudden the headline that played into the narrative that Donald Trump and his supporters were the problem and misinformation and disinformation is the problem, the irony is that headline turned out to be misinformation itself?
I mean, I think that, the federal government, this was a pretty unprecedented time for them, and they acted, which a FEMA security official told me they don't take threats lightly, and they shouldn't. When you go into disaster zone, they are inherently dangerous. And after the threats that FEMA had been receiving from, being in terms of like anti-Semitic threats, they had been receiving threats that they were like going to bomb, people would like going to bomb the office. I think when you hear that there might be armed militia in a region where I heard from disaster sources, they had been seeing people carrying arms, and FEMA is not super popular in that part, that I don't fault them for taking the step that they took.
Yeah, I've been in a lot of disaster zones. I would be armed too if my house had been destroyed and was rolling around. But Brianna, thanks for coming on and talking about this. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.